Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Timeshare Talks. I'm your host, John Raymond, along with Wayne Robinson, Irene Parker, and Adam Siler, an Air Force veteran talking about why veterans and active duty service members support resellers. So a little bit about me. I've been a timeshare resale broker for over 20 years, and I currently own 3 timeshares, and I really love using them, and I've helped hundreds of people buy and sell their timeshares. Wayne Robinson is the author of an awesome book, Everything About Timeshares. And current owners and people interested in buying a timeshare or selling a timeshare really should buy this book. Irene Parker is an independent writer. She's been a timeshare owner for over 35 years, helped many owners figure out how to sell their timeshares. The purpose of Timeshare Talks is to educate and promote a viable secondary market for timeshares and to bring attention to the oral representation clause that's been the source of tragedy for many families. Last week we had Earl and Faith share their bad experience about the timeshares and being scammed by an exit company. I wish you could have been here with us. It's you can go back and check it because their dog Raven stole the show. So Irene, you've known Adam for a lot longer than I have, and I'd like to ask you to introduce him.
Yes, Adam and I have gotten to know each other quite well. And but before I introduce Adam, I want to just go over a few things from our past segments. And the first thing I want to say is, John, I didn't really understand the importance of the resale broker, because when people buy a timeshare, typically they're caught off guard and drawn into a presentation. There's no way to compare one timeshare from another. And if they contact you or one of the other resale brokers, you are able to be objective and explain the difference between the different timeshares, and people can take as much time as they need to stay at the resort and evaluate it. So I think it's important to educate about the secondary market before people buy a timeshare. The other thing I want to say is, as a devil's advocate, Wayne, last time you said that the deeded week is the best to buy, and you know what you're getting. But I know of many people that have either given up their deed or just purchased points, and they like the flexibility of the points. You don't have to stay a week. It doesn't have to be the same week every year, and you can stay less than a week or more than a week. And the other thing you said, Wayne, I just want to point out, is that you said the contract rescission period is 7 days. The contract rescission period is state mandated. So it's between 3 to 10 days. And you have to check on the state to see what it is. So in introducing Adam tonight, we've asked our guests not to talk about the name of their specific resort, because I've observed many times where if there's an agent where there's a problem, they will leave the company and go work for another company and then come back or keep working at the other company. So we want to concentrate on industry-wide practices. And by doing that, Adam has launched an initiative to reach out to veterans and active duty service members. And Adam can talk, and Wayne can talk a little bit more about why an active duty service member needs to scrutinize his purchase a little bit more than the average person. And so we are encouraging everyone, whether you are active duty, veteran, or just buying a timeshare, if you do experience unfair and deceptive practices as defined by the Federal Trade Commission, it's specifically 5B of the FTC Act, that you file a complaint with Trade Commission. I spoke with a supervisor from the Federal Trade Commission yesterday, and they took me to a lawsuit that they sued a resale company called Pro Timeshare Resales in Florida. So you always sometimes think that the government's not going to do anything, but if enough people file complaints, they will act. And specific to Adam, who is an 8-year Air Force veteran, the FTC has 3 factors to define what is a deceptive practice. And the second one is that the deception cannot be reasonably avoided by the consumer. And as Adam gets into what happened to him, I think it's obvious that it would have been difficult for him to avoid what happened to him. So I believe half of a problem goes away when it's confronted. And there's a lot of finger pointing at exit companies, but there is a problem with deceptive sales. And just recently, the California Attorney General settled with Welk Resort for $5.5 million concerning deceptive sales practices, and Welk is going to be acquired by Marriott Timeshare. And another significant settlement a few years ago, the New York Attorney General settled with the Manhattan Club. And Wayne, when I was going through your bio, I saw that you actually worked for the Manhattan Club. And even though that settlement was a few years ago on Red Week, there's an extensive thread of people still fighting with attorneys over what happened at the Manhattan Club, and it concerned, I think, availability that was available to people that general public that weren't available to people that spent a lot of money to get in. Before Adam begins, can you share your experience with the Manhattan Club?
Yeah, I worked with the marketing department, so my job was to make phone calls, multiple phone calls, to entice people to take a timeshare presentation for some gifts. And I worked there, I'm not sure how long I worked there, but it was in another state. I believe I was in Pennsylvania. And the problem what people are running into is Manhattan Club was points. Manhattan Club is one of maybe 2 timeshares in the whole city. So when you have points, you have no control. We don't know how many timeshare units were available at the Manhattan Club. And what people don't realize is that the Manhattan Club members is that they don't realize that Manhattan Club is not a timeshare, it's a hotel. That they may have 1 room or 2 rooms or 3 rooms, but when you own points, you don't know how much of it is timeshare. And the appeal of owning at the Manhattan Club is the location, limited availability in the city, and also it's very luxurious. They have a doorman. So trading power is a word that's used in these presentations, indicating that you can go anywhere, anytime if you own a Manhattan Club timeshare. So when you make your reservation, there wasn't anything available, and that was what people were complaining about. And like many resorts, you can go online and book your own, and there's plenty of inventory, but not for the owners. So this is the deception that the timeshare industry does not disclose. So anybody can walk in off the street and become a sales. When I was working there, anybody can walk off the street and become a sales agent. Now I believe you have to have a timeshare license or a real estate license. But people need to look at the public offering statement. It'll tell you exactly how the timeshare is structured, how many timeshare units are there. But like the contract, nobody reads it. Who's going to read a 100-page public offering statement? And that was the problem. People didn't understand what it was that they're buying. But yeah, there was a $6.5 million lawsuit, and the timeshare owners won. But still, you still deal with some other illegalities.
Well, thank you for that. And Adam, go ahead and let us tell us a little bit about your experience. And we thank you for your initiative to think beyond your own situation, to reach out to other people. And we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, so I began back in, I'd say, 2015 with looking at different timeshare resorts, and ended up doing the same thing. I mean, I went to Vegas, the hard sell, that whole process where they end up, just asking you, and you go in and you get, those nice gifts to go to one of the shows, So we jumped in, and at that point we ended up doing a little trial run with the company, and really what the thing was is that each time we went to we went to another upgrade, or we went to another presentation, or we went to where they have these things where they just get you really forced into, oh, they call you and say, oh, you in 90 days you have to go, or you lose the benefits of your points. And there was always these scare tactics that followed, when that whole, like Wayne was saying about that phone call that was coming, and they would make you think that with us we had points, and then they were like, well, those points are losing their value if you don't go. And they're like, well, you're limited to, at that point we were limited to, they would say you're limited to 17 places. And which initially they show you that you're available to a lot more. And then you find out, as time goes, as the 3 months, 4 months goes by, and, that whole thing with the deception, it began to just create some different animosities and stuff. And then as we fast forward, we go into another upgrade, or go to another presentation, and we were told that we just really needed to. We were at almost close to our 2-year point with them, and they were like, well, you've got to do this or you're going to lose all your equity. They're going to lose all this that you have in there. And, as they do that, that whole thing where, they tell you this is going to happen, and, you go into that presentation. Well, it's supposed to be a 1-hour presentation. Next thing you know, that 1-hour presentation for us turned into 7 hours, and it was like, you're not eating, you're not, they give you water, and then there's all these really forces behind it, that where they just continue pressure, people coming in, people going out, it's like, and they have all these they have all these horror stories, and they do all this different stuff. And, there's gives me these things about these events and all this different pie in the sky stuff, because we were really enjoying going to these events and the things of these specials that they were having. And, he just began telling us these points, and he told us that, what we could do with, our maintenance fees. You could get maintenance fees, half the price, the maintenance fees, by becoming, utilizing a credit card. And then, then it was like, okay, we'll be able to also, help you with your interest, or help you with the actual interest rate, because the interest rate was at 16.5%, 17%. It was crazy, and through this whole process, he was doing that, and explaining to us that, hey, and so in this, but making it so believable, and making his, and the whole thing with, at that point, why would I have all the ability to say, hey, you know what, I could have walked out, but the fact is that he created this level of trust, for us. And then we find out after the 14 days, which, as Irene was saying about the 3 to 10 days to write a rescission, well, he knew it as well, because he said that, hey, at 14 days, I'm going to get in contact with you because I want to be able to help you, to be able to get it refinanced. And, well, 14 days came and went, 21 days came and went, and I reached out to him, and, there was these things about the story about his, that there was his son got in a severe car wreck. He sends me pictures of his son car wreck, and he sends all this stuff to me and saying, hey, and, it just began as he goes through. And then we unfortunately, we really enjoyed what we had and what we were doing, but we just had to get out of it. Because by the time when we got there, he's like, no, I can't really do anything to help you. He's telling me to refinance my home. He's telling, by text message, and it just is like, well, then, but he knew at the very beginning that, it was just basically to get me into a $200,000 contract, and so this is kind of where I got into the point where the whole, the FTC and trying to file the complaints and just trying to encourage people because, the timeshare sales is number 7 on the top 10 scam list this year alone. There's $17 million in losses. The resale fake buyers are listed as number 10 at 12 million. Section 5B of the FTC Act defines unfair and deceptive sales practices according to the FTC supervisor. If we file enough complaints, with them, with the FTC, these things there's going to be some things with these resale agents that are going to have to something's going to have to grab. Yes, timeshare has been around forever. My parents had timeshare, and got out of it and stuff and let it go away. But the thing is, the deceptive practices that these guys practice on a normal basis, is it's sad because, I go in, like I said, I want to trust them. I want to believe what they're having to say. I don't go in to an event or go into a meeting thinking that person's going to be lying to me, to be able to upsell me. I know people want to upsell to buy stuff, to get more commissions and things. But when you get in there and you start seeing, as I've been doing some reviews and when we've been looking through this, to see that some of these guys are making millions, million and a half, 2 million. The person that I work with is like the number 3 person in the company. $1.6 million he made. It's crazy. It's like, how in the heck? And then you understand why. How can somebody make that much and have that much of without potentially having to have deception?
And how
Because
much have you lost altogether?
what's that?
How much have you lost altogether? How much have you invested in that timeshare?
I have I did my first one was 6,000, and then I went back. I was told I had to do a second one because I was getting ready I was going to lose that one. That was $9,000. And then which I haven't lost it, but that was upgraded. And then I went into my final one where I was upgraded to a point where I was lifetime, or where I was, able to say I was full silver or whatever, the levels that they have. I was gold actually, and that was 100 and I think it was all together like 100. It was $160,000. I
And
bought
you invested that?
Well,
yeah,
you financed,
I financed it. I
yeah,
financed it, so I was paying. So my monthly payments for that was like $1,600 a month plus the maintenance fees. And this is where the whole thing was, because the gentleman was just so like, hey, I'll be able to get you down to 6 to 7%. We'll have no problems. Your credit's great. He came back, he pulled my credit score, pulled my wife's credit score, and comes back with this like glowing, thing from his boss and saying, hey, we're going to have no issues at all, getting you done and get this thing done. And he was like, hey, the problem is that for us is he coached us through the whole thing as we got ready to go into the actual final sale process to go into the quality controller. He coached us and told us, he's like, don't say things. He's like, when they start asking you certain questions about did they offer you any promises or anything like that, he says, do not, do not, do not. He says, I'm going to write down on on this piece of paper, and these are the 3 things that I want you to say. And so for y'all, for those that are listening, in the future, if you go in and you hear somebody tell you to not, or they want to coach you and tell you what to say, I would be very cautious, because there's very good chance that there is a deception going on, or there is a lie taking place, and they're not wanting to lose the monies that they would potentially have gained from it.
And
Because
because of your not being able to reduce from 16%
right,
to 7%, you are in the default process right
I
now.
am in the default process. Yes, because yes, so it went from me having a payment previously of about $800 plus about $500 a month for maintenance fees, um, where is what I was paying, and all of a sudden it went to where I was gonna, once at January 1, it was gonna be where I was having to pay about $2,200 a month.
For
Let me think if I'm
timeshare.
make my numbers right. No, actually, it was going to be about $2,800 a month. I was going to have to be paying to continue to have the availability, but there's when I go to try to stay anywhere, there was no availability because of COVID, but they were still continuing to charge me and start wanting to, and so I just said, you know what, I have a new vehicle. I have a vehicle that's drivable. I have, my cards. I have all these different things that I'm just, able to continue. And, I was like, you know what? I have a home, and I'm just not going to um, be able to sustain with what this. And then with COVID, hitting, it was like I was in with my career, I was like, I don't know that would consider me an essential, and I was extremely nervous about how long, me being I work new construction, I'm a plumber, and I was like, well, I don't see building new houses as being essential, you know, and so the odds are that I was going to lose the income that I had coming in uh, was a very good possibility, and so I had to look at where did I want to have my money going out at, but they weren't very interested at all of doing anything because of what was said to me in the meeting, or when I went through our whole thing about what was promised and all those different things, that they just said, you know what, you're bad luck. Basically, after being on the phone with them for a while, they're like, you went in that quality control meeting, you had all opportunity to tell or say what was said to you by your agent. And I'm like, ma'am, he promised me that there would be no problems. And so I believed that man. He shared his pie in the sky dream. And because of my issues with um, my, my, uh, depression and my anxieties and all the different things that's come from the military, you know, I was like, hey, you know what? I want to believe this guy. And unfortunately, it's backfired on me. And they're like, you're just going to have to eat it, and you're going to just have to pay for it. And I'm like, no, I don't. I'm going to take the hard way out, and hopefully, in time that it'll go away. It may be 7 years, or by the grace of God, by me continuing to push and prod over what I feel is right with, how they're treating veterans and how they're attacking us and how they are, just being utilizing the stuff that they're doing just to hurt. What they're doing is hurting some of these military veterans that are actually currently, that are disabled mentally, physically, and then also those guys and gals that are currently just still enlisted. People don't realize the dynamics that timeshares can have on them. There's some great times with your family, but there's also some different dynamics of these guys that we're learning that there's people out there that are losing their security clearances over timeshare. because of them not able, they're having to basically do a foreclosure, or they're not able, they're in the same situation I am, and they can't continue, or they're getting ready to go to a place to, go to Kuwait. They're going somewhere for a year. They're going to Afghanistan. They're going to different places. And, and then they're like, well, you just shouldn't have done it. That's their outlook on it. But then all of a sudden they go and they find out, and they get a message to their first sergeants or whomever, and they're being pulled off of the lines because the fact that there's situations back at home, and and they've learned that they've lost their top secret security clearance.
Yeah,
to
so the
become
lesson here would be, whether it's veterans or not, the lesson here is you do not believe what the agent said. Everything has to be in writing. And the idea that he coached you is to protect his butt, but the
Yep.
control person, we call it a VLO, verification loan officer, they can record things, and that recording is their protection. And that's where people go wrong, is that you don't trust the word of anybody. It has
Yeah.
to be in writing, and that recording is their protection. And they did the right thing for them, but it wasn't the right thing for you. So the lesson here
That's
is,
correct.
regardless of whether you're a veteran or not, do not listen to the salesperson. Everything has to be in writing. And also my recommendation is never, never, never buy on the spot. Always look to an honest resale agent.
And in closing, I want to say that there have been 7 complaints against Adam's sales agent. Adam is number 6, and number 5 and number 7, identical complaints, were able to resolve their complaints with the same company. And I suspect it's because both of those members were high loyalty level members, but Adam would have gone back to more of a trial program. Oh, who's this?
What's that? That's not Raven.
So we really thank everybody, and John and Adam and Wayne. And I really look forward to next week with Ron Roberts, who puts on-site and off-site resale programs into resorts. And we really hope that people do their due diligence before buying any timeshare. A timeshare can be a great thing for your family. Or I have heard from over 2,000 timeshare members like Adam, where it can destroy your credit and be a really bad decision. So we just want more open communication and transparency. So
Okay.
thank you, John, for hosting us.
Well, thank you all so much. That was a great thing to hear from you, Adam. The listeners need to know what happens, and Wayne is absolutely right. And I like what Wayne said: buy from an honest resale broker. That's me. But really, you have much more time. You're not under any pressure to buy from a resale broker, and you're going to get the opportunity to hear all the good ways, good reasons, how to use them, why you would want it, why you may not want it. You can think all through that when you're working with a resale broker. And yes, next week, join us, Ron Roberts from Legacy Solutions. He's going to talk about turning timeshare lemons into lemonade. He's using on-site and off-site resale programs to do that. So thank you again, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Okay.
Thank you, John.